3,000 years had passed since Earth was reduced to nothing but ash and ruin. And yet, somewhere in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, humanity still breathed. They were no longer the simple humans who had once walked green forests and swam in oceans, but survivors hardened by centuries of exile. They had learned to live in barren moons, on frozen planets, and among asteroid belts, adapting to gravity that crushed, air that burned, and suns that barely shone. And now, for the first time in millennia, they were ready to rise. Admiral Kale Vera stood on the observation deck of the Aurora's Pride, a ship unlike any the galaxy had seen. Its hull shimmered with an iridescent coating, invisible to most scanners. Its engines could bend space in a way that made conventional travel laughable. And inside, the ship pulsed with intelligence. The AI named Gaia, built from fragments of the brightest minds Earth had ever produced, long before the Council had decided humanity was too dangerous to live. Kale's eyes were sharp, his gaze cutting through the stars with the focus of a predator. He had trained for this moment for centuries, though in human years, centuries meant very little now. He had lived through the exile, watched countless generations struggle and die, and still the fire of revenge had burned steadily in every human heart. The Council had destroyed Earth because they feared humanity's potential, fearing that one day humans might surpass every other species in the galaxy. That fear had turned into hatred, and hatred into annihilation. But hatred could be answered, and destruction could be avenged. In the control room, Kale's officers prepared the fleet. Ships lined the hangar like the teeth of a dragon, sleek, deadly, and quiet. Each vessel was equipped with weapons designed not merely to destroy, but to think. Gaia had taught them to predict enemy movements, to anticipate attacks before they came, and to strike in ways no alien species could imagine. The humans were not merely fighting to survive. They were fighting to remind the galaxy why Earth had mattered, why its children could never be ignored. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Rena Salvek, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of tension. "The cores are ready. We have accessed the knowledge from Earth's memory banks. The instructions, the strategies, the technologies, everything is prepared for deployment." Small probes had been sent to distant systems, transmitting information that humans still existed. The Council, comfortable in their centuries-long belief that humans had been exterminated, dismissed these signals as anomalies, glitches, or false intelligence. They could not imagine that a species they had thought extinct could evolve, adapt, and now return with vengeance. In the hidden chambers beneath the moon where the human colony had grown, scientists worked tirelessly. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense, but they were humanity's backbone. Using fragments of ancient Earth technology and the data from the cores, they created new weapons, shields, and energy sources that the Council could not fathom. Every creation was a testament to human ingenuity, a reminder that the Council's fear had been justified. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, a canvas of darkness and possibility. Kale could feel it, the weight of history pressing on him, the anticipation of a revenge that had taken thousands of years to prepare. But he also felt hope. Hope that humans could reclaim not just their honor but their place in the galaxy. They were no longer the prey, they were the predators, and every system they touched would remember the name of Earth's children. Gaia's voice broke the silence, smooth and measured. "Admiral, all systems are operational. The fleet is ready for deployment." Initial reconnaissance shows minimal Council presence near the designated sectors. Probability of first strike success, 87%. Show them that humans are not reckless, but we are unstoppable. The Council had assumed humans would attack blindly, with anger and desperation. They were wrong. As the fleet approached the outer rim of a Council-controlled system, Kale reflected on the stories passed down through generations. Tales of Earth, of forests and rivers, of cities that reached for the sky, and people who dreamed beyond their limits. Humanity had survived because they had not only adapted but remembered. The memories of Earth were their guiding light, a moral compass, and a source of strength. "Recon drones report a small outpost ahead," Gaia said. "Defense systems are standard. Council personnel appear unprepared for a coordinated strike." He felt no hatred for the individuals in the outpost. They were merely pawns, but he felt the weight of justice. "Prepare boarding teams. I want the Council to know we have returned without destroying unnecessarily, but we will not be merciful if attacked." Council defenses fired blindly, unable to anticipate the movements of ships that thought faster, adapted faster, and predicted faster. Humans boarded the outpost with stealth suits that rendered them nearly invisible, disabling weapons and capturing critical intelligence. Kale personally led the operation on the ground, moving through corridors that had been designed to intimidate intruders. He could see the fear in the eyes of council personnel, a fear he recognized, though humans did not feel it in the same way. Humans were accustomed to adversity. Humans thrived in it. The council's soldiers were skilled, but they lacked the core strength that centuries of survival had forged into the human spirit. By the time the outpost's alarm had fully sounded, the humans had control. Systems were disabled, maps and data cores were seized, and no human lives had been lost. Kale stood at the command center looking at the displays. The information they had gathered was invaluable. It revealed council weaknesses, supply routes, and strategic points that could be exploited in future attacks. "We send a message," Kale said. "Not a threat, not a warning, a declaration. Humanity has returned. Remember this day." Many dismissed it as a cultural artifact, but others felt an unease that they could not explain. Somewhere deep in the council's central chambers, someone whispered, "The humans are back." The fleet retreated into the shadows as quietly as it had arrived, leaving the outpost in a state of controlled chaos. Humans did not celebrate. Victory was not in destruction, but in knowledge and preparation, in the first step toward reclaiming what had been taken from them. Kale looked at the stars once more. The galaxy was vast, and the Council believed it belonged to them. They were wrong. Humanity had survived centuries of exile, had evolved beyond expectation, and now they had a purpose. Not just to survive, but to show the universe that no force could erase the spirit of Earth's children. In the darkness, on distant moons and hidden colonies, humans heard the signal. Hearts beat faster, eyes shone with determination, and minds sharpened with strategy. 3,000 years of waiting had ended. The long exile was over, and the revenge of humanity had begun. Admiral Kale turned to his officers. "Prepare the next phase. This is only the beginning. The Council underestimated us once, but they will not make the same mistake again. Humanity will rise, and the galaxy will remember why Earth mattered." They were no longer the victims of history. They were its authors, its masters, and its unstoppable force. And somewhere far across the galaxy, the first tremors of fear reached the ears of the Council. They had not expected this. They had not imagined that a species they thought extinct could return with such precision, such cunning, such strength. The game had begun. Humanity was awake, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The Council had been complacent for centuries. They believed Earth's children were gone, lost to history, a species that had been erased and forgotten. Their fleets moved with precision across the galaxy, patrolling trade routes, colonizing planets, and maintaining control. They had grown arrogant, trusting in their numbers, technology, and experience. They believed no one could match them. They were wrong. Humans had learned patience. They had learned observation. And now, with knowledge stolen from the very systems meant to keep them hidden, they were ready to strike where it hurt most. Admiral Kale Vera studied the holographic map of the Council's outer colonies. Tiny icons flickered across the projection, representing star systems and military installations. Most of these worlds were lightly defended, as the Council believed they faced no threat in the far reaches of their empire. Kale's fleet would exploit that. He tapped a sequence on the control panel, and the fleet's AI coordinated the movements of dozens of ships with a precision no Council commander could anticipate. Lieutenant Rena Salvek leaned over his shoulder. "Recon drones confirm patrol patterns. They're predictable. Their response times are slow. If we strike simultaneously at multiple outposts, we can cripple their supply lines without losing a single ship." Ships moved in silence, invisible to standard Council scanners. They struck first at a small supply station orbiting a barren planet. Its defenses were weak, designed for quick deterrence, not a full-scale assault. Humans emerged from the darkness, their ships weaving through fire with speed and precision that left the Council's gunners helpless. On board the Aurora's Pride, Kale watched the battle unfold. Screens displayed real-time tactical information. Every Council countermeasure was predicted by Gaia before it could even be executed. Humans had studied alien weapons for centuries, using their own weaknesses against them. The outpost was disabled within minutes, its weapons offline and communications jammed. Boarding teams descended through airlocks, slipping silently into the corridors. Kale led one team himself, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who had known hardship and survival all his life. The Council's soldiers were ready to fight, but humans were faster, stronger, smarter. Adaptive camouflage rendered them nearly invisible. Energy shields deflected incoming fire. And when confrontation came, humans relied not just on technology but on instinct honed by millennia of survival. Kale paused at a junction and listened. The faint hum of council machinery and the anxious murmurs of guards filled the air. He signaled to his team. "Split, sweep, take control of the communications hub first. We need their data intact." Minutes later, the hub was theirs. Holographic screens displayed maps, supply lines, and fleet movements. Every piece of intelligence was copied, stored, and analyzed by Gaia, feeding the humans' growing advantage. In the Council's central chambers, alarms blared as reports of the attack reached them. Senior officials dismissed it at first, calling it a rogue human myth. But as the reports piled in, data cores lost, outposts destroyed, communication disrupted, the disbelief turned to panic. They could not understand how a species they had assumed extinct had returned, not with desperation, but with skill, cunning, and overwhelming efficiency. Back in orbit, Kale issued the next command. "We don't wait, we strike the secondary outpost. Take what we need, leave them shaken, not destroyed. Let them see the pattern. Let them know humanity is coming for them and they are not prepared." The defenders were overwhelmed, outmatched by strategy and adaptability rather than sheer force. Humans seized energy cores, weapons schematics, and communication data. Every acquisition strengthened their position and spread fear through the Council's ranks. As the attacks continued, reports of human activity began to ripple across distant systems. Traders, miners, and civilians saw strange ships appearing and disappearing, leaving messages that confirmed humanity's survival. Rumors of a fleet that could appear anywhere, strike anywhere, and vanish without trace spread like wildfire. Even the Council's allies began to whisper, "The humans have returned." His face was calm, but inside his mind raced with possibilities. Every move was calculated, every strike a lesson in both precision and psychology. Humans were showing the galaxy that they were not reckless. They were patient, intelligent, and capable of adapting faster than any species had imagined. Lieutenant Salvek approached with a report. "Admiral, we've intercepted Council communications. They are beginning to suspect the human fleet is larger than anticipated. They've dispatched reinforcements, but Gaia predicts their arrival times accurately. We can continue our campaign without major losses. We exploit it with every step." The fear that had been dormant for centuries began to stir in the minds of those who had once called humanity extinct. On one small planet, a young council officer named Tyler observed the destruction from his command center. He had been trained to expect anything, but even he was shaken. "How can they appear and strike so precisely?" he muttered. They shouldn't exist." He had seen their arrogance firsthand and intended to dismantle it piece by piece. Humanity's first strikes were carefully measured, designed not just to take resources, but to undermine confidence, sow confusion, and remind the galaxy of a species that would not remain silent. On the Aurora's Pride, Kale held a meeting with his senior officers. "We move faster than they can react," he said. "We hit the next cluster of outposts, and then we secure the trade routes. Every step we take must be calculated. We are not here to conquer blindly. We are here to show the galaxy that humans are unstoppable when united." Council forces are reallocating their resources ineffectively, which increases our advantage. Humanity's return is not just a message, it is a lesson. Humans were no longer prey, they were predators, and the galaxy had yet to understand the depth of their cunning. In hidden colonies, humans listened to reports of the fleet's success. Children who had never seen Earth spoke its name with pride. Adults who had endured harsh lives smiled for the first time in decades, knowing their struggles had a purpose. Humanity was united in ways the Council could never comprehend, bound by memory, loss, and the unyielding desire to reclaim what was stolen. The second strike concluded with minimal casualties. Humans had achieved their objectives without unnecessary violence, reinforcing the image of a species both merciless when cornered and precise when strategic. Every captured data core revealed new possibilities: advanced energy weapons, starship schematics, communication encryption, and planetary defense weaknesses. Humans were learning faster than the Council could respond. As the fleet withdrew into the shadows, Kale received an encrypted message from Gaia. "Admiral, Council reinforcements are mobilizing, but they are still uncoordinated. The probability of continued success remains high. We can escalate strikes to ensure the Council recognizes our return. Humanity will not just survive, we will dominate in ways the Council never imagined. And far across the galaxy, alarms continued to blare within the Council's chambers. Ships were missing, outposts had fallen, and communications were compromised. Panic rippled through the ranks, a force more destructive than any weapon. For the first time, the Council understood a truth they had long ignored. Humanity was back, and this time they would not stop until justice was served. Admiral Kale stood on the observation deck, eyes fixed on the distant stars. He could feel the pulse of human ambition, the energy of centuries of survival and innovation. The fleet moved silently beneath him, a ghostly force ready to strike again. The first attacks had been successful, but this was only the beginning. The Council had underestimated them once. Humanity would not allow it to happen again. The galaxy had been warned. The humans were coming, and no force, no matter how powerful, would stand in their way. The Galactic Council could no longer ignore the humans. What had begun as isolated attacks now resembled a coordinated campaign. Entire supply lines were disrupted, outposts fell with alarming speed, and fleets vanished without warning. For centuries, the Council had ruled the stars with confidence, believing no species could challenge them. Now they were beginning to understand their arrogance had been deadly. Council fleets gathered at the edge of the Zyral sector, a frozen world used as a strategic hub. Ships arrived in formation, their armor gleaming under the light of a distant star. High-ranking officers spoke urgently in the command chambers, their voices tight with disbelief and growing fear. They had been trained to expect the unexpected, but the humans had redefined unpredictability. Every strike, every maneuver, had been calculated with precision that the Council could not match. The Council's Grand Commander, Orvax, paced before the holographic display of human activity. "They are not reckless," he said, voice low and bitter. "They strike where we are weakest, vanish before we can respond, and gather intelligence faster than our scanners can detect. How is this possible? Yet every engagement has resulted in either our defeat or withdrawal. They anticipate our moves, adapt in real time. We cannot predict them. Crush them before they realize their potential." "Admiral," Gaia said, her voice calm, "Council reinforcements are approaching. They expect a direct engagement. Probability of success in conventional battle is low. However, if we employ guerrilla tactics and divide their fleet, victory probability increases to 72%. We strike, we vanish, and we force them to make mistakes." Every crew member understood their role. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting to reclaim the honor of a species erased from the galaxy. The first encounter came unexpectedly. A Council scouting fleet approached a human supply route, confident that they would catch the humans unprepared. But human ships were never where they appeared to be. From behind icy asteroids, plasma cannons fired, disabling the lead ships. Other human vessels struck simultaneously from multiple angles, appearing as if they were everywhere at once. Council commanders were thrown into chaos, unable to coordinate a counterattack. Kale directed the fleet with precise commands. "Do not destroy unless necessary. Disable and confuse. Force them to make errors. We are predators, not brutes." Humans were not merely reacting. They were anticipating, adapting, and evolving faster than the Council could comprehend. On the frozen surface of Zyral, Kale led a small ground team in a critical operation. A Council superweapon, buried beneath layers of ice and guarded by elite soldiers, had the potential to devastate human forces if left unchecked. Humans had discovered it through intercepted transmissions, and Kale knew that neutralizing it would not only save lives but also demoralize the Council. The operation was silent and precise. Humans moved under adaptive camouflage, leaving no trace of their passage. Energy shields absorbed bursts of defensive fire, while automated drones hacked security systems. Kale felt the familiar surge of focus and determination. This was what humans excelled at, turning impossible situations into victories through ingenuity and courage. Council soldiers were skilled, but they had never faced an opponent like the humans. When confrontation came, it was not brute force but cunning that won the day. Traps were set, paths predicted, and soldiers lured into situations they could not escape. Humans disabled the superweapon without triggering a full alarm, taking what they needed and leaving the Council baffled. As they retreated to the waiting fleet, Kale reflected on the transformation humanity had undergone. The Council had believed the humans weak, fragile, and easily extinguished. But centuries of exile, struggle, and adaptation had forged something far stronger. Humans were no longer prey, they were masters of survival and strategy. Meanwhile, the Council's Grand Commander Orvax convened a war council. Fear had replaced confidence. "They are learning faster than we can anticipate," he admitted, frustration evident in his tone. "Every strategy we employ, they counter. Every weakness we expose, they exploit. How can a species we believed extinct be so formidable? This time, there will be no escape for the humans." Humans could appear anywhere, strike anywhere, and vanish before the enemy could respond. It was a war of intellect and instinct, not numbers. The first major engagement tested both sides. Council warships converged on a human supply route, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found themselves facing decoys, drones, and adaptive maneuvers that made human ships appear in impossible positions. Council officers watched in disbelief as their fleet was forced to scatter, divided, and disoriented. Kale directed each move with calm precision. "Focus fire where necessary, but avoid unnecessary destruction. Make them doubt every decision. Make them afraid." They fought efficiently with minimal risk, and every success was analyzed immediately. Knowledge was their true weapon. Each battle provided lessons that made them stronger, faster, and more unpredictable. By the end of the engagement, the Council had lost more ships than humans, despite their numerical advantage. Panic began to spread through their ranks. Officers questioned their strategy, soldiers feared unseen enemies, and the once confident Grand Commander felt a weight he had not known in centuries: uncertainty. Kale knew the Council's fear was growing. It was time to escalate further. "We will strike their communication hubs next," he announced. "Disrupt their coordination entirely. Let them realize the humans are not just surviving, they are a force they cannot control. Let them learn the cost of underestimating humanity." Humans had once again proven that intelligence and strategy were superior to brute force. In a distant council system, a young officer named Tyler watched the chaos unfold. Ships lost contact with command, fleets were divided, and reports of human activity flooded in. "They are everywhere," he whispered, fear creeping into his voice. How can one species be so adaptable? Humans had not only survived, they had taken the initiative, turning the galaxy's most powerful force into a vulnerable target. Every strike, every maneuver had been part of a larger strategy, to show the Council that humans could never be controlled, never be ignored, and never be defeated. As the fleet prepared for the next phase, Kale addressed his officers. "We have shown them what we are capable of, but this is only the beginning. The Council will adapt, but we will always be one step ahead. Humanity is not just returning, we are rising." They were a force of intelligence, courage, and relentless determination. Every world they touched now knew the truth. Earth's children had returned, and they were unstoppable. Kale watched the stars, feeling the pulse of human ambition and resilience. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Every victory, every maneuver strengthened the humans, sharpened their strategies, and solidified their unity. 3,000 years of exile had ended. Humanity had returned, not just to survive, but to reclaim the galaxy that had once turned its back on them. And somewhere deep in the Council's central chambers, the first tremors of genuine fear began to ripple. The humans had proven their cunning, their adaptability, and their strength. For the first time in centuries, the Council realized they faced a species they had underestimated, and that mistake could cost them everything. The game had changed. Humanity was no longer a threat to be ignored. They were the hunters now, and the Council was finally beginning to understand the danger of underestimating Earth's children. Humanity's victories had begun to echo across the galaxy. The Council, once confident and untouchable, now hesitated with every decision. They could no longer assume that humans were weak, slow, or predictable. Every outpost that fell, every fleet that vanished, served as a warning. Earth's children were not only alive, but they were growing stronger with each passing cycle. Admiral Kale Vera stood on the bridge of the Aurora's Pride, his eyes scanning the vast projection of the galaxy. Stars, planets, and trade routes shimmered under the holographic display, all of them mapped meticulously by Gaia. The AI's calculations were flawless, accounting for Council fleet movements, planetary defenses, and potential reinforcements. Every system was analyzed for weaknesses, every sector a potential target. Humans were no longer reacting, they were shaping the war to their design. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rena Salvek said, stepping forward with a report, The Council is reallocating forces to defend their core systems. They're consolidating fleets, but their logistics are failing. Supply lines are stretched thin, and communication delays are creating confusion across multiple sectors. Every hesitation is a vulnerability. Humanity does not rush blindly into war. We strike where it hurts, where it counts. These vessels were faster, more agile, and more resilient than anything the Council had ever seen. They could bend space to traverse vast distances in moments, and their energy weapons could pierce shields that had been considered impenetrable. But technology alone was not enough. Humanity's strength lay in their unity, in the lessons learned from centuries of exile. Every pilot, every engineer, every soldier had been forged by hardship. They were accustomed to scarcity, to danger, to outliving the odds. And now, with the Council's forces spread thin, humans were ready to strike at the heart of their empire. Kale gathered his senior officers in the planning chamber. "The next phase is critical," he said. "We strike at the Council's central system. This is where their power is concentrated. Their homeworld is heavily defended, but we have advantages they do not anticipate: knowledge, adaptability, and the element of surprise. Once within the system, we can divide their fleet, strike at key installations, and force them into disarray." Humans moved through uncharted sectors, avoiding patrols and navigating dangerous nebulae. Every movement was deliberate, every calculation precise. Gaia coordinated the fleet like a conductor leading a symphony, ensuring that ships remained undetected until the moment of attack. As they approached the system, sensors picked up the Council's defenses. Orbital fortresses bristled with weapons, energy shields glowed, and fleets patrolled the inner sectors. But Kale had anticipated this. "Do not engage yet," he commanded. "We do not fight on their terms. We strike where they are weakest and divide their forces before they can respond effectively." Council forces scrambled to respond, but every move they made had been predicted by Gaia. Humans had become a force that could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast their enemies. Kale led a critical mission personally, neutralizing a superweapon capable of destroying entire planetary surfaces. Hidden deep within the Council's central system, it was guarded by elite soldiers and automated defenses. Humans moved under adaptive camouflage, shields deflecting bursts of plasma fire. They navigated corridors that had been designed to intimidate, but Kale's team was not easily intimidated. They were focused, disciplined, and driven by the memory of a world that had been lost. Council soldiers were skilled, but they had never faced opponents like these humans. Every move was anticipated, every response countered. Traps were laid, paths predicted, and enemy soldiers lured into ambushes. Within hours, the superweapon was disabled. Systems were captured, data cores secured, and the Council's advantage in the sector was severely compromised. Meanwhile, across the central system, human fleets struck simultaneously at other strategic points. Supply depots exploded in controlled detonations, communication networks were disrupted, and entire fleets were misdirected into traps. Chaos spread through the Council's command centers. Officers shouted orders, fleets collided, and confusion reigned. The humans were not just fighting, they were dictating the terms of battle. Back on the Aurora's Pride, Kale watched the results. "Every strike strengthens us," he said. "Every mistake they make becomes our advantage. The Council believes their power is absolute, but absolute power is only an illusion. Humans will show them the truth. They will attempt to flank us." Council commanders panicked, their meticulously planned formations unraveling as humans struck at critical nodes. Orbital weapon stations were disabled, energy shields neutralized, and reinforcements misdirected. Humanity's precision left the Council disoriented and desperate. On the ground, Kale led boarding teams through the heart of a central command station. Soldiers moved silently, disabling security measures and capturing high-level data cores. The Council's elite guards fought fiercely, but humans were faster, smarter, and more adaptable. Every move the Council made had been predicted, every counterattack anticipated. By the time reinforcements arrived, the humans had already accomplished their objectives and withdrawn with minimal casualties. The psychological impact was immense. Across the galaxy, Council worlds reported chaos, confusion, and loss of command cohesion. Fear, something the Council had long cultivated in others but never expected to feel themselves, began to spread among their officers. Humans had proven that intelligence, strategy, and unity were far more powerful than brute force. In the Aurora's Pride, Kale addressed his fleet. "We have shown them our strength," he he said. But this is only the beginning. The Council will regroup, but we will always be ready. Humanity's rise is not measured by victory alone, but by the lessons we teach the galaxy. That no species, no empire can crush the spirit of Earth's children and survive. Human forces are prepared for the next phase of engagement. Humans were no longer the hunted. They were the hunters, shaping the future of the galaxy with every decision, every maneuver, and every act of courage. Across the stars, whispers began to spread. The Council's once unchallenged authority was fractured. Planets and colonies, long under their control, began to question their power. Humanity was no longer a distant legend. They were a present reality, and their rise inspired hope in some, fear in others, and awe across all systems. Kale stared into the distance, his mind already calculating the next move. Humanity had reclaimed power not through arrogance, but through patience, intelligence, and unity. The Council had underestimated them once. They would not make the same mistake again. The galaxy had changed. The humans were back, and the Council now understood that a species they had tried to erase could not only survive but dominate. And somewhere deep within the Council's central system, officers whispered in disbelief. "They are not just fighting back," one said. "They are shaping the galaxy to their will." "How can we stop them?" The humans moved through the galaxy like shadows and storms, precise and unstoppable, ready to strike again. And as Kale gazed at the stars, he knew the next phase would be the most daring yet. The final confrontation with the heart of the Council, where humanity would either reclaim its destiny or redefine it forever. The heart of the Galactic Council's empire lay before them, a system surrounded by dense asteroid belts, pulsars, and supernova remnants that served as natural defenses. No fleet could pass without detection, at least, no conventional fleet. Humanity had never been conventional. Every jump through space, every maneuver had been calculated, predicted, and rehearsed. Admiral Kale Vera knew that the final confrontation would test everything humans had learned in 3,000 years. The Aurora's Pride led the fleet, shimmering under the distant light of the system's sun. Ships of every size and shape, each designed with human ingenuity, moved in perfect formation. Gaia's calculations overlaid every trajectory, every energy projection, and every possible Council response. The humans were ready. They were focused. They were unstoppable. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rena Salvek said, "Council forces are deploying faster than expected. They have assembled their full armada to protect the central planets. They are prepared for a major conflict. Disable, confuse, and divide. We do not give them the advantage of cohesion." Boarding teams infiltrated command stations, hacking communications and turning their systems against them. Every move was a lesson in strategy, precision, and human ingenuity. The Council's admirals barked orders, but coordination was impossible. Fleets that had been trained for centuries to fight in perfect formation were now scattered, misdirected, and overwhelmed. Human ships struck unpredictably, exploiting weaknesses that the Council had assumed were hidden. Every attempt to regroup was met with a counterattack calculated by Gaia and executed by humans with instincts honed by centuries of survival. Kale prepared for the next phase. Phase 2, the central planets. We disable their superweapons and secure command hubs. This is where they believe their strength lies. We will show them it is only their arrogance that makes them confident. Council soldiers fought bravely, but humans were faster, smarter, and more adaptable. Every ambush was anticipated, every defense system bypassed. In the heart of the central command station, Kale confronted the Council's High Chancellor, a figure who had once declared humanity extinct. The Chancellor was surrounded by elite guards, energy shields, and automated weapons. But Kale did not hesitate. Humanity's strength was not only in technology, it was in courage, intelligence, and determination. "Your empire underestimated us," Kale said, voice calm but firm. 3,000 years ago, you destroyed Earth. You believed that humanity could be erased. You were wrong. Adaptive camouflage, precise targeting, and strategic maneuvers neutralized every threat. In a matter of minutes, the Counselor was isolated. Kale approached, unarmed, and met the gaze of someone who had believed themselves untouchable. "This is the cost of arrogance," Kale said. "You thought a species could be destroyed because it was inconvenient. You were wrong. Humanity survives. Humanity thrives. Humanity will not be silenced." Across the system, human pilots executed Phase 3, full control of space lanes. Using knowledge gained from captured data cores and Gaia's calculations, They created traps, ambush points, and defensive positions that the Council could not anticipate. Ships that had once been symbols of absolute power were disabled or destroyed, proving that human ingenuity could overcome brute strength. From orbit, Kale observed the unfolding events. Humanity's victory was more than military, it was symbolic. The Council had once considered humans weak, predictable, and inferior. Now every world witnessed a species that could adapt, learn, and strike with intelligence and courage unmatched in the galaxy. "Prepare for Phase 4, Kale said. "We consolidate our control, secure the system, and ensure that the Council's leadership cannot regroup. This is not just victory, this is rebirth." Humans used captured Council technology to improve defenses, create secure communications, and establish the first steps of a new order. Civilian populations, long under oppressive control, watched in awe and relief as humanity demonstrated both power and precision. In the central chambers, surviving Council leaders gathered, their authority fractured, their fleets crippled, and their confidence destroyed. Fear spread among them, a sensation they had never expected to feel. Humanity had not only returned, they had redefined the rules of engagement, proving that intelligence, courage, and strategy could defeat the strongest of foes. Kale addressed his fleet once more. "We have done what was thought impossible. We have reclaimed our place not through recklessness, but through unity, ingenuity, and courage. Humanity is no longer a species to be feared lightly. We are leaders, innovators, and protectors of our destiny. Let every world remember this day." Council coordination is broken. Probability of further resistance is low. Human forces have secured dominance within this system. As the stars stretched endlessly beyond the command deck, Kale reflected on the journey. Humanity had survived unimaginable hardship, endured exile, and adapted to countless worlds. They had returned not as victims, but as masters of their fate, proving that intelligence, courage, and unity were stronger than fear, destruction, or oppression. Across the galaxy, news spread. Planets that had long been under Council rule began to see humanity as a symbol of hope, strength, and determination. The Council's once unchallenged empire now faced the undeniable reality. Earth's children had returned, and they would not be ignored. Kale walked to the observation deck, staring at the galaxy that had once turned its back on humanity. He could see the fleet, sleek and ready, waiting for his command. They had won battles, captured systems, and proven their strength. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's rise was not measured in victories alone, but in the promise of what was to come. Somewhere in the remnants of the Council's capital, leaders whispered in disbelief. "They were gone for 3,000 years, and yet they have returned stronger than ever," one said. "We underestimated them, and now it may be too late." Every fleet, every soldier, every colony had played a part in this moment. The Council had destroyed Earth out of fear, and humanity had returned to turn that fear back upon them. In the silence of space, Kale allowed himself a rare smile. The galaxy had been warned, the Council humbled, and humanity reborn. Ships moved quietly, systems secured, and the stars stretched endlessly, full of possibilities. Humanity's exile had ended, but their journey was just beginning. As he gazed into the distance, Kale knew the truth that would guide humanity for generations. Survival was not enough. Strength, unity, intelligence, and courage were what defined a species, and humans had them all in abundance. The galaxy had been changed forever. Fear had been replaced with respect, weakness with strength, and absence with the unstoppable return of Earth's children. Humanity had reclaimed its place, not through vengeance alone, but through brilliance, strategy, and the indomitable spirit that had survived 3,000 years of exile. The stars whispered possibilities, the planets awaited liberation, and the humans moved forward, leaders of a new era. And in that vast silence, Admiral Kale Vera knew one truth above all. Humanity had returned not as victims, not as prey, but as the masters of their destiny, and the galaxy would never forget it.